ominous sight in Kim Il-sung Square, North Korea's growing missile arsenal on full display, including what the South Korean military suspects are two never-before-seen intercontinental ballistic missiles. Like all military parades around the world, these missiles are most likely mock-ups, but analysts believe North Korea has the real thing and may be waiting for just the right moment to put this modernized missile arsenal to the test. What should the world think when they see these ballistic missiles rolling by? Is North Korea a threat to the world? The Korean People's Army is fully ready to attack our enemies at any moment, he says, if they try to attack us. Despite escalating rhetoric and U.S. warships and submarines headed for the Korean coast, the nation's supreme leader Kim Jong-un did not test a nuclear weapon Saturday, as many predicted. Instead, he showed force by showing off missiles that could someday deliver nuclear warheads to the mainland U.S. I think we've done something bigger than a nuclear test, he says. We've shown the world something much bigger. Analysts say Kim Jong-un can push the button on North Korea's 6th nuclear test at any time. He's already launched more missiles than his father and grandfather combined. From missiles to manpower, goose-stepping soldiers from all branches of North Korea's massive standing army. A fighting force of more than 1 million men and women, soldiers chanting they're willing to die for their supreme commander. Also on display, North Korea's conventional arsenal, tanks, artillery, weapons pointed directly at tens of millions of people in the city of Seoul, South Korea. Even if North Korea can't match the firepower of the U.S., experts say they have the potential to do a lot of damage and kill a lot of people. After the soldiers, the civilians. These are people who've been out since the pre-dawn hours screaming, "Long live Kim Jong-un." Saturday marks the Day of the Sun, North Korea's most important holiday, celebrating the 105th birthday of Kim Jong-un's grandfather, President Kim Il-sung. The founder idolized alongside his son, the second North Korean leader, Kim Jong-il, an entire society built around 3 generations of the Kim family. What do you want President Trump to know about the North Korean people? I think President Trump should try to learn more about North Korea and its people, she says. We are never afraid of the American nuclear threat. We have our own nuclear weapons to counter those threats. Weapons North Korea and its unpredictable leader put on full display, promising they're not afraid to use them if provoked. Will Ripley, CNN, Pyongyang. So far, no nuclear test on the Day of the Sun, North Korea's most important holiday, but you have seen a show of force of a very different kind. You can see North Korean citizens are out here right now. These women are holding up a North Korean flag, and earlier we saw North Korea's full arsenal on display. There were Scud missiles, there were submarine-launched ballistic missiles, there were land-based missiles that can be launched from a mobile launcher, and at the very end we saw North Korean intercontinental ballistic missiles. We know that North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's goal is to develop an intercontinental ballistic missile with a nuclear warhead capable of reaching the mainland United States. And while analysts say they may not be there just yet, parades like this are certainly evidence that they continue to make progress, faster progress than many experts had predicted. A lot of people thought there might be a nuclear test today on this important holiday or in the lead up to it. However, it seems as if the North Koreans are holding off on the nuclear test for now, but I have received information that a special operations exercise, a military exercise earlier this week when commandos were jumping out of airplanes, that was an exercise in direct response to tweets from President Trump talking about North Korea and urging China to solve the North Korea problem, as he put it. But we also know that there's a USS Carl Vinson carrier strike group, 60 planes, submarines equipped with nuclear missiles, and a 97,000-ton aircraft carrier, all designed to send a message of deterrence to the North Koreans, telling them not to engage in provocative behavior such as another missile launch or a nuclear test. But the atmosphere out here, as the North Koreans would put it, is a single-hearted determination to fight against the United States, because their country has told them all of their lives that they are under the imminent threat of invasion. And so you have a lot of these civilians out here, perhaps not many of these women, but you have a lot of the men in the crowd here who have a military background who have told us repeatedly that if there were to be a war with the United States, they would leave their jobs, put their uniforms back on, and fight. So this is what North Korea is saying, that they are being underestimated by the world, and they put on these supersized displays to try to prove to the world that they are here to stay and they're going to move forward on the road of their choosing, even if that road is a path to nuclearization that many others, including the United States, feel is a dangerous and destructive path. Will Ripley, CNN, Pyongyang.
This is a Fox News alert. The Associated Press reporting North Korea has attempted and failed to launch another missile. The reports citing South Korean media saying that the launch was attempted on North Korea's east coast, a day after a parade in the capital city featured military hardware, including possible ballistic missiles. North Korea celebrating the country's late founder, Kim Jong-un's grandfather. Tensions, of course, going up between our two nations as President Trump talks tough. And right now, he's working to engage American allies to help keeping Kim Jong-un's ambitions at bay. Allies like South Korea and China and Australia, which has big interests across the Pacific Rim. Earlier today, I sat down with Kevin Rudd, a former Prime Minister of Australia. Listen.
The key question is not what North Korean leaders say, because there's always belligerence. It goes up, it comes down, but it's mainly up and always getting higher. The key thing is to observe their technical progress. That's the real technical timetable here. It's about missile range, missile accuracy, your ability to miniaturize nuclear material.
Their ability to go transcontinental with a missile. That's what a lot of people fear.
Or even medium-range missiles and their capacity from a submarine to reach Guam.
And as these high-stakes developments play out, our senior foreign affairs correspondent Greg Palcott is on the ground in Pyongyang with the very latest. Hi, Greg.
Hey, Julie. Yes, breaking developments, I have to say. In the past 10 minutes or so, we've been getting word about this failed missile coming from North Korea. In fact, we have not heard it from North Korean government yet. I have been here on the ground in the past where they have tried launches, where they have failed, and frankly, it's taken a day or two to get the government here to admit that it has happened. But as you've been reporting, AP and other agencies quoting the South Korean government, the National Security Council there, saying that they have detected a missile going off or trying to be launched from Simpo. That's one of their launching sites on the east coast of this peninsula, and failing. They call it a ballistic missile. I would have to say that if it was launched from that site, it was probably an intermediate range missile, not a long range missile. They usually launch sites there into the Sea of Japan in the direction of Japan, which certainly gets the Japanese quite nervous, and the United States very nervous. Remember, we have 35,000 service members in Japan, and they could be targeted as well. But it does not appear to be, although we don't have confirmation, a long-range missile. And as you've noted, we were expecting something like this around this day. Yesterday was the North Korean time. We are Sunday morning right now. Was the 105th anniversary of the birthday of the founder of this country, Kim Il-sung, and we were expecting, frankly, all sorts of things around this time. There was heightened interest in the possibility of a sixth nuclear device being detonated around this time, or maybe also a longer range intercontinental ballistic style missile being launched as well. That did not occur, and we figured that Kim Jong-un, the young leader of this country, was going to let his rhetoric do the firing rather than his missiles. But in fact, now we see there was an attempt, according to South Korean government, to make some trouble on the east coast of this country and in this region. That is the big concern, that they do have a ICBM, or will have an ICBM a missile that could be tipped with a nuclear warhead that could reach, believe it or not, the United States. According to several experts that we've been speaking to, that possibility could be within the next 3 years, as they put it, within the first term of President Trump's time in office, and that's exactly why he and his officials are going so hard to try to rein in the regime here in North Korea. I'll give you a little bit of taste of what we saw on Saturday because it relates to what we're talking about here. First, let me show you how close we got to the young leader of this country, and then we'll talk a little bit about what we saw yesterday in that parade. Take a look at us yesterday at the parade.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un presiding over a most unusual combination parade here in Pyongyang, military, civilian, and nationalism, perhaps because his government is in a most unusual situation, in a standoff with the United States over his banned nuclear and missile program. The young leader is looking to the crowds for raucous, perhaps highly orchestrated support.
Now, in that parade, Julie, this is very interesting. We and experts who really know a lot about this stuff were looking hard at the hardware that was rolling by us. And yes, they saw 2 intermediate-range missiles of the type that might have been launched this morning that was on display to the public. One was a submarine-launched missile, another a land-launched missile. And even more alarming to the experts is they saw at least prototypes being rolled by on trucks of possible intercontinental ballistic missiles, new types of missiles perhaps using different types of fuels, and that's gotten people concerned. Other than what we saw on the ground there, we also heard a lot of strong rhetoric. The right-hand man, the right-hand official to Kim Jong-un, he gave the speech. We did not hear, in fact, from Kim Jong-un, and in his words, this country would, quote, defiantly confront the United States in any full-out war, including nuclear strikes. And we even got a shout-out to President Trump in the official government output yesterday. The state media saying that it was, in fact, President Trump causing all the problems with his, quote, military hysteria, and they called that dangerous in the United States, not North Korea, and that it would, quote, be no longer tolerated. So recapping what we're hearing, Julie, again, a failure according to South Korean officials by North Korea. They attempted to launch a missile. Our guess is medium range. We don't have a confirmation on that. It appears early this morning. I'm looking at my watch now. We're just going just before 8 a.m. here on a Sunday morning. They usually do it early in the morning. It came perhaps at least a day or two later than we expected, but it came around the time of the most important date in their calendar, the anniversary, the founder of the birth of the founder.
That was Greg Palcott reporting. Unfortunately, our satellite cut short there, but reporting live from Pyongyang in North Korea. He was talking about the 105th birth anniversary of Kim Jong-un's grandfather and his regime threatening to provoke a response from the U.S. by testing missiles or other weapons. And this just in, our U.S. military is confirming that indeed a failed ballistic missile, unidentified missile, was tested. It was launched. It, in fact, I'm told by my producers, blew up almost immediately. It's not clear exactly what kind of missile this could have been. Greg Palcott just now reporting on mid-range missiles. Now, let me just clarify about missile technology. There are Taepodong-1, there are Taepodong-2 missiles. Back in 2006, on another eventful day, in fact, it was the 4th of July here in the United States, and Kim Jong-il, at the time, test-fired 7 missiles, some of which were those long-range missiles, some of the most dangerous kind. North Korea, obviously, provoking a response by the U.S. We are awaiting on a response from the White House. But as you mentioned, you just heard Greg Palcott mention, this is very much in response to how heavily handed our administration, the Trump administration, is handling this situation in North Korea that has gone on way too long. And so currently North Korea issuing a forceful response to the deployment of a U.S. naval strike group that is also in the region. So the threats continue. this was a failed launch. We are awaiting a response from the White House.
Let's bring in now retired Marine Corps Colonel and ABC News contributor Steve Ganyard, who served in the Pentagon and also as a fighter pilot. Steve is in Washington. Steve, good morning. Let's talk about the new missiles that North Korea unveiled, what appears to be an ICBM, an intercontinental ballistic missile, and also some submarine missiles. Do we think these are actually operational?
Some of them are, some of them aren't, Dan. I think the submarine missile, we saw a test earlier in the year, quite concerning because the submarine can hide and you can put it off the coast of either Korea or Japan. The larger missiles are the ones that are most concerning, and these are the intercontinental ballistic missiles that can conceivably reach the U.S. First time we've seen them, the number of missiles and the capability on display here is quite disturbing.
And in terms of retaliatory military action, Steve, the U.S. now has what could be a game changer. What can you tell us about that?
Paula, there's a new missile or a new capability that the U.S. has that's based around high-power microwaves. It's a burst of electromagnetic energy, the same thing you would find in a nuclear weapon. But they've been able to put this in a stealthy cruise missile. It's not talked about it much because it's brand new, but it is a tool that the president would have. The idea here being that this electromagnetic pulse would fly over an area such as where the North Koreans would be conducting a nuclear test, and it would send this microwave energy into the ground. It would be absorbed by anything that was electrical. It would go into the ground and fry everything underneath. Nobody gets hurt, just everything stops working that uses electricity. So we'll watch for that because that's something new that President Trump would have in his quiver.
Steve, given that North Korea did nuclear tests twice last year, I believe, what is new here? And are the increased tensions we're seeing right now due to North Korea or due to Trump's tough talk?
There's not much new here because Kim Jong-un continues to ramp up the pressure, continues to move towards not only a nuclear capability, but the means to deliver. That's what we're seeing here. He's getting missiles that can travel farther distances, and one of the missiles we saw today could actually potentially reach the United States. That's what's most disturbing. So we've had Democratic presidents and Republican presidents that have kicked this problem down the road for 20 years, but we're getting to that point where the North could now threaten directly the U.S. homeland, which is why it seems President Trump is taking this problem head on.
Unsettling, to say the least. Steve, thank you very much.